When I first left Islam, one of the very first days I came out as an ex-Muslim, I got a message from someone in Pakistan. His name was Ghalib Kamal. Ghalib suffered deeply because of what he stood up against, and he deserves to be heard. He's a Pakistani ex-Christian who has suffered the wrath of the cruel and harmful blasphemy system that's used in Pakistan. His story is very interesting. He was the best friend of Ayaz Nizami, the vice president of Atheist and Agnostic Alliance Pakistan, who got arrested in 2017 for blasphemy and has been in jail awaiting potential execution. Ghalib was given a quick heads up by a well-wisher, and he had only a few hours to flee the country with his wife. He ended up in Sri Lanka, which is where he was when he did this interview with me. He has since relocated successfully to the US, and his situation is thankfully much better now. I'm looking forward to having another interview and speaking with him again soon. I interviewed Ghalib, who was in the middle of trying to re-establish his life after fleeing Pakistan. This is an interview which still is highly relevant today. I give you Ghalib Kamal. And if you speak Urdu, check out his Urdu channel, link below. Hi everyone. I'm joined by Pakistani freethinker Ghalib Kamal today to talk about his reflections on the country of his birth and how it's been going in a very bad direction recently. Pakistan has been going in a direction that is very worrying and troublesome. So while we just wait for people to join, I'm just going to talk about something else that's been going on recently, which is very interesting, which is a big controversy with Yasir Qadi, the Quran, and the variants, and there's a lot of drama on Twitter. It turns out I've been shadow banned on Twitter, so you can no longer search for you can still see my tweets, but you can no longer search for my tweets. Have you ever experienced anything like that, Ghalib?
No, not till now. But government of Pakistan or someone from Pakistan has been trying to get my Twitter handle blocked, though it has a very small following. Even then, they've been trying to get it blocked. So it's kind of ironic. But this thing is terrible that you are talking about. So
wow.
If I try to search your tweets, I wouldn't be able to.
Wow. So can you introduce yourself a little bit, Ghalib? How's that? And tell me, how's everything? You obviously we're in the middle of a kind of crazy time right now, but I feel like things have kind of adjusted. How are you doing right now?
Basically, I am in exile. I am living as a refugee for now, and I am not. I don't know that how much more it will take for me to get to a safe country, because things are not going very smoothly right now. The international scenario for refugees and asylum seekers is not very favorable because of the right-wing governments everywhere. So it's kind of a mess. But if I tell you about my history, I have been blogging on social media for the last 8 years. I started in 2014, and I've been writing since. And I've written mostly in Urdu. I've written a handful of articles in English as well, but mostly I've written in Urdu because Pakistan needs a lot of people who communicate in Urdu, that the general masses who do not understand English or do not have access to the information in English, they should get the first hand. They should get information in Urdu. So mostly there is a group on Facebook. It's a very popular group. I think you might also know about it. Its name is Pakistani Freethinkers. So I am one of its admins, and I have been its admin since 2014. So this group was started by a very famous social media personality in Pakistan. He's also like a covert atheist in closet. His pen name is Ghulam Rasool. Like my pen name is Ghalib Kamal. It's not my real name, but it's my pen name. So because it is very important in Pakistan to operate in this way, because there are blasphemy laws, there are terrorists who can kill you, there are all kind of hostile people if you criticize religion using your own name. Even right now, I have started a YouTube channel, and I can criticize Islam, or I can criticize overall religious dogma. But This is not possible in Pakistan. If I was living in Pakistan right now, I wouldn't be ever able to do this,
And
because the situation.
was Pakistan more liberal before? Because I've heard that even alcohol was more common, and like, what happened? Why is it going in this direction now? What changed? Is it changed actually, or was it always like that?
Alcohol is still available. Like when I was in Pakistan, alcohol is still available. It's there. They have made a in when Pakistan was founded, from that time to the government of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Bhutto, Benazir Bhutto's father, who was hanged to death by the military dictator Ziaul Haq. Till Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's time, at the same time when they declared the Ahmadiyya sect of Islam as non-Muslims, after this they also declared liquor as illegal in Pakistan. But there is still a loophole that they left in the constitution. That is, any non-Muslim can get liquor.
Yeah.
So non-Muslims have licenses that they can buy liquor. So what happens is, like, in the name of non-Muslims, every year millions of liters of liquor is imported to Pakistan. There are breweries as well. The most famous brewery in Pakistan is Murray Brewery, and they have very good beer, and they even have good scotch and whiskey and all of those things. So what happens is, like, in the name of those people, the liquor exists in Pakistan and everyone else is buying. So Muslims, because the liquor is forbidden in Islam, so Muslims have a special attachment towards liquor. So if I was in Pakistan and I tell someone that I have a bottle of liquor, so like 5 out of 4 people will say we want to drink.
4 out of 5, yeah.
Yeah. Out of 5, 4 people will say we want to drink, and if there is on Christmas or on such occasions when the Christians are celebrating, so most of the time Muslims are telling them, do you have liquor? We want to drink. So this is how, and even this is about Punjab and Islamabad and all these places. But in Sindh, in the Sindh province, that is the southern province, with the Karachi as its capital, in that province, liquor is not hard to come by. You don't need to show any license or anything. You just go to a liquor shop and you can buy whatever you want to. So in Sindh, it's totally not a problem. In Punjab, it is somewhat a problem, but if you know the right people, a bootlegger, then there are smugglers of liquor and everything happens there. And in the northernmost province, like the KPK, you get hash and you get the best quality heroin and hash and ganja, all of that there, because it's coming from Afghanistan. Some people are also making it in the KPK province as well. So Pakistan, drugs wise, is a heaven. Like maybe it's the best kind of heroin or best kind of ganja, chars and all of these things you would be able to get, hash you will be able to get in Pakistan. So one thing that has happened here is, because liquor is banned, that's why other kind of illegal drugs have also become very common. Why? Because when liquor is not banned, liquor is allowed, what happens is most of the people just drink and they stop at this. But when liquor is equally illegal as some other drug, those other illegal drugs, so psychologically, if people think that they are drinking liquor, so what they're committing a crime by buying and drinking liquor, then it's similar to try any kind of other drug. So psychologically, they are more inclined towards trying other drugs as well, because it doesn't make a difference, because one thing is illegal and the other thing is also illegal. So if they are doing another kind of drug, that is also equally illegal. So
that's interesting. Because over here, like, a lot of people were worried. I'm in Canada, obviously. A lot of people were worried that once they make weed legal, it'll open the door, like it'll become a gateway drug. And definitely that doesn't seem to have happened. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I feel like there was a bit of a honeymoon with the weed, and a lot of people for the first time, they were like, everybody wants to try weed for the first time, and everybody's excited it's legal and this and that. And now people are like, yeah, whatever, it's weed. It's like
no big deal.
It's like, whatever, you know what I mean? If you want it, get it. If you don't want it, like, I think when it first came out, everybody was like, oh my God, weed. And then now it's just like, okay, I don't know.
It's like liquor now.
Yeah, it's like liquor now, exactly. But the thing is,
no one cares now.
I definitely think that liquor, I mean, alcohol, not liquor, alcohol in general is bad for society. I feel like it's, what do you think about that?
What I think is, like, if a person is happy, they should drink. Like, kind of stressful days that I'm going through in my life now, I have avoided liquor for the last almost 2.5 years, more than that. So if I'm among friends, then maybe I would drink a peg or two. I don't drink more than that. So this is very important, that we have to know what kind of state of mind we have at the moment. If I'm
Yeah.
depressed and I am I am not in a very good state of mind, then it will elevate whatever feeling that I have. So if I have negative emotions, they would be, they would get heightened. If I am happy, then the happiness will get heightened. So that's why my rule is that never drink alone.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is my
yeah,
never
yeah.
drink.
I
So
feel like people that haven't experienced alcohol before, for example, ex-Muslims, there's definitely a very precarious stage in their lives where you have to be very careful not to overdo it, because it's like you've
yeah,
never
exactly.
tried it, you never grew up,
Yeah.
you never saw people being drunk before. Maybe you did, maybe you're not one of those type. In my type of Muslim, I was the one that was completely abstaining. I don't even go to places where there's alcohol. Like, when people ask, is Islam a cult? I mean, this is a question I get asked a lot, and then you can answer as well. But like, my opinion is that it's different for everybody. In my case, like me and my wife, we were like closer to what you would call cult, because all of our friends were Muslim. I mean, thankfully, I wasn't to the point where I wasn't interacting with non-Muslims, because I still had a job. I was still interacting with non-Muslims, and that's what helped me to be free of this. But like, all my friends, every single one of my friends was Muslim. Everything in my life was centered around Islam. And the community that we were in was very religious. So when I left it, we lost a lot. We lost a lot, actually. My wife lost her friends. I lost my friends. We lost everything, in a sense, right? So in that sense, we were like in a cult. And then at that point, if you haven't been around people that's drinking, you don't understand when to stop, and you've never seen people getting wasted, you don't know, and you can easily overdo it, right? I was always very conservative. I don't even I drink very, very little, like maybe a drink a week, maybe 2 drinks a week. I'm very, very careful about these things, even with weed when I tried it for the first time. But sometimes I've seen ex-Muslims or people that have never experienced this, they go overboard, and I guess it's part of learning as well,
Yeah, because it's a training, because you have to train even your one thing that I've learned from a few of my friends as well. I've seen people in family do that as well, because for me it was never a problem to get liquor in Pakistan, and in the family as well. I've seen, because I come from a different background, so I've seen people drink. So the one thing that I noticed is the parents who allow their children to drink in front of them, like, they are better able to train their children and tell them, like, not to get wasted or not to get out of control. So at a certain point in time, at a certain age point, they have to teach how to handle the liquors, because if I cannot handle my liquor, then I have to know my limits, like how much can I take and how much should I drink, because this is very important. Some families have history of diabetes, so they should never drink too much. If they drink too much, then their lives will be cut short. So it's a very different type of thing. And the other question that you were talking about, a cult, Islam as a cult. So any religion when in minority is kind of a cult, because and it depends upon the level of extremism in that religion. And Islam happens to be one of the most extreme religions at the current point in time. In the 21st century, there is no other religion that is as much extreme as Islam. So that's why when Muslims are in minority, then there comes this group mentality, there comes this insecurity as well. Then there are other societal issues. Then when you are a minority living in any country anywhere in the world, then it's a fact that you would face some discrimination at least. So then when you face discrimination, then there is a tendency that you can go towards the identity, the extreme identity. You get more attached to the extreme identity. So that's why there is a greater chance of Muslims going into a kind of cultic phase in non-Muslim countries. So this is what I think. But I don't know, maybe you would have a different feeling, but one thing I just remembered, the day you posted that video saying that you were no more a Muslim, I sent you a congratulations on that day on Facebook.
Wow, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, 2015,
So,
eh? Yeah.
so yeah, because I had seen you as a Muslim as well, and
Oh, no way.
I had. So I had seen a few of your videos, and I was thinking at that point I thought that he seems like a very brilliant young man, and he's not thinking rationally, but you are the best example of a person who has a rational mind, and he can, how long can you bear Islam with a rational mind? So you are the best example of that thing, because
Thank you.
in front of us, one day you were defending Islam, you were an Islamic apologist, and the other day you were like,
Isn't
you were
that
totally.
isn't that someone that you would call unstable? Someone that changes their mind like that?
No. I wouldn't, because I have also gone through that phase. I also left my religion. So I know, because leaving religion behind or leaving God behind, it does not happen in just a click. It takes a lot of time. You have to think. The process starts very,
Yeah.
like it would have started maybe 2 years ago, before that point for you. Similar happened for me.
Yeah.
So then you are in a deep thinking process for 2 years. You are also in pain, but you are also in kind of, you are slowly realizing what is true and what is falsity, and in the end you come to realize that whatever was told to me is all a lie. And then when you have to grasp this truth once again, so you have to just, I sometimes give this example, that you have to burn the building of yourself, like your being. You have to burn down your being, and from the ashes you have to grow a new plant, that is you. So it is like, it's very difficult for me. It was too difficult. It was not easy, because God was everything for me,
Hmm.
every day.
So
Yeah.
someone's asking, why Uday is asking, why don't other religious minorities become cults too, like Muslims when they're in minority? I think, I don't know about, I'm not going to talk about mainstream Christianity, but I do think that if you look at certain Christian groups, they are
Like
very
Mormon.
cultish, like Mormons, for example, or Jehovah's Witnesses, or even some of the more obscure, Christian cults.
There is
Christian groups.
one group that is, they don't use any kind of scientific tools. What are they called?
You're talking about the oh, I'm forgetting.
They have a
Hutterites,
very simple kind of
Mennonites,
name.
the Mennonites, Hutterites, Amish. Yeah.
Amish. Yeah, Amish. So Amish, Amish have been doing that, and religious cult. Why don't other religions go into the religious cult type thinking? If if you're from India, you know that even Sikhism has been subject to this cultic type of thing, and even terrorism got involved in that, and the main terrorist who was heading the Khalsa movement and all of those things, he was sitting in a temple in the end, and then all of this started. And so temples were being used in that way as well. The Sikh temples were being used. So it can happen with any religion.
Yeah, I think that, okay, we got to look at what does it mean when we say cult. So in what I'm saying when I mean cult is that, people, basically, there's certain tendencies in cults that are very harmful. For example, they make you cut off your family members. They make you to prefer the religious doctrines over rational thinking, which again it's in all religions, but in some cases it's worse than others. Some Muslims, for example, don't really care that much about Islam. It's there, it's in their life. They go for Jummah, but like they're mixing with non-Muslims all the time. If some Islamic, like I'll give you an example of my mom. If I told her Islam says you can't get a mortgage, and I actually told her this as a Muslim, she was like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about, beta? Like, what is this? Like, what are you saying to me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'm like, no, you have to get rid of the mortgage. We have to get a halal mortgage or just sell the house.
yeah,
She's like,
yeah,
no, I'm not selling the house. I'm not canceling the mortgage. I'm not quitting. I even told her to quit her job because she used to work for finance. She's like, no, I'm not quitting my job. So she wasn't in a cult. She was like living her life. She had the religious things there, but like me, I was in a strict Salafi sort of thinking where I was I was definitely not cutting off my family members, so that's a good thing. My wife, I encouraged her to see her family members as well. All of that things, I think all of that continued, I think. So I do think it's different for everybody, right? Like some people are not in a cult, and some people, I think, have certain tendencies. Like if you leave Islam, some of your family members will actually either physically harm you. Like I've heard of many women, ex-Muslim girls, that have been like strangled or choked or beaten when they said they're leaving Islam or not wearing hijab. And a lot of that connects to the whole honor culture and stuff. So that's a very much cult-like thing, right? But again, I don't want to talk too much about other religions because that's not my focus, and I don't want to overstep. Can you shut the door? I don't want to overstep and, you know, say something that I don't really understand too much. But I do want to go back to alcohol because you said something very interesting. You said the alcohol ban leads people to doing harder drugs, which is very interesting because I think psychologically speaking that, like, without looking at the data, to me that makes sense that if you're actually banning something, you can make it even more enticing. And that's what you're saying you've seen. So obviously we don't have data with us, but you're saying just from living in Pakistan, this is what you noticed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this I noticed. Why? Because the problem is, like, everyone draws a line somewhere for what is forbidden and what is allowed. So basically in Pakistan, that line is that liquor is forbidden. You cannot drink liquor. So everything hash or weed or heroin or maybe ecstasy or maybe something else, crystal meth, whatever drug you can find, lies beyond that line. So if you cross that line, like, you know, it takes a lot of what you would say, it takes risk to call a bootlegger for a bottle of wine or for a bottle of liquor. So if you call a bootlegger one day and you ask him for liquor and he gives you liquor, so this you have stepped over that line for the first time. So next time you wouldn't even think twice about asking the bootlegger for weed. You are not going to think. Why? Because now you have crossed that line. Now that hesitancy, that you know, that restriction has been lifted. So once you have opened the main hole, now all kind of things can go into it. So now this is happening. So there is, then, you know, these bootleggers, they also want to sell these things. So they are also marketing things that in front of you. So if you call them and if you meet them, they would tell you, okay, I have got this new drug and it's very good and this and that. So because they are also marketing, so their marketing is also word of mouth. So if you are my friend and you and I have a same bootlegger, so if one of us is trying weed from that same bootlegger, so definitely I'm going to tell you. So word of mouth is the only marketing that is happening. So then if I tried that weed, I will tell you, okay, Abdullah, you should also try this weed I got from our bootlegger. So then maybe once or twice, or maybe if we have 10 friends or maybe 5 friends who are going to the same bootlegger, and at least one of them tries a drug, so then when he tries starts to tell the others about this drug, so we are much more inclined to get the drug from that bootlegger. So this creates all kinds of problems in Pakistan. You know, anywhere in the world you can get rubbing alcohol, anywhere in the world, because that is the most effective, the most cheapest thing to make and to use if you have a bruise, or maybe in these days, you know, rubbing alcohol has become very, very important. Why? Because you have to disinfect it. But in Pakistan, it is impossible to get rubbing alcohol from a drugstore. Why? Because people make liquor from that alcohol if it's available on the drugstore. So it's not being sold there. Why it's not being sold there? Because people are going to make liquor from it, and there are people who get their hands on some kinds of industrial alcohol from time to time, and they try to make liquor out of it. And what happens? So many people die every year. Every year people die on Eid ul Fitr. Every year people die because of drinking, you know, poisonous liquor that is homemade, or maybe made by some standard bootlegger who is trying to, you know, rip people off by selling some fake liquor to them. So every year on weddings, people die because of liquor, this poisonous liquor that is made by bootleggers or even made by them. So this is happening all together. So there is no quality control for liquor. So what you are getting in the name of liquor could be fake liquor that you are getting in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And it kills hundreds of people every year, fake liquor and poisonous liquor. So
that's a good point. Yeah. So that actually is a very good argument in benefit of legalization. Anytime you prohibit something, you just push it underground and you lose all quality control. To me, like I never tried weed. Actually, I did just before, this whole legalization thing happened. I did try it, but I feel so much more comfortable knowing that I can buy brand name weed, that there's a company behind it. They're taking quality control seriously. They had to, they had to pay money to be certified by the government. So there's some sort of quality control. And if anything happens, I can sue them. I can say, well, exactly. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but there's somebody.
And you can go to a consumer court, you can
there's some sort of responsibility there, right? Whereas when you're buying something on the street, it's just like, I wouldn't want to do that. It's just risky, right? And dangerous. But like, that's what people are doing anyway. So it seems like, even though you ban it, all you do is you push it underground and you just make it more dangerous for people. So in many in many ways, though, I do think that it's always going to come down to a liberty versus harm benefit sort of framework, exactly. Right? So at the end of the day, there's no right and wrong answer, because it just depends on which way you want to take it. Like if you ban it, of course, there's also side effects of that. You reduce consumption, you make it more difficult to consume, but also you create these other problems, right? If you legalize it, then of course consumption goes up actually, right? Because whenever if alcohol is easily available, anyone can go get it. You've taken away the sort of the shame factor. You've made it acceptable, right? So people will do it. Now, in my opinion, if you're comparing weed and alcohol, weed is much less dangerous than alcohol.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't overdose on weed. You can't. I mean, you can, but I mean, you'd get anxious or something. Like you wouldn't die. You can't. Drinking and driving kills so many people. There's so many other harms of alcohol. So I think having strict rules, having limits, is better. And someone's asking, can I speak Hindi? No, I can't speak Hindi or Urdu, unfortunately. I can only speak English, and that's it.
Yeah, मैं हिंदी बोल सकता हूँ. I can speak Hindi.
Yeah, so just to anyone that's joining in, I have Ghalib Kamal on my channel now. He's a Pakistani free thinker. He has a channel he started on YouTube. He has a website as well. If you're an Urdu speaker or Hindi speaker, please do check out his channel. And we'll I'll be on there at some point as well. So we have a question for you. Yep. Go ahead.
One other thing that I would like to add is, like, even when you ban liquor, you are losing a lot of valid tax money.
Yes.
Because it's all underground, and the government is losing a lot of money, because every year if lot of smuggled things are coming into your country, then smuggling overall becomes easier. Why? Because a legal thing that should have been legal is opening more smuggling channels. Because if a channel is established to smuggle liquor into the country or something else into the country, anything else, even arms can come through the same channels, because lot of smugglers are going to exist because of only drugs. And then what happens is, like, they know how to smuggle things into the country without detection. So even then you are allowing this type of thing. So there is, like, this is a plethora of causes and effects that happen because of just small petty things. And now you're also overburdening your law enforcement.
Oh yeah,
this True. Is what happens in Pakistan. When they will stop someone on a checkpoint, they will check their vehicle, and if they find some small amount of weed, then they are going to ask for a bribe, or maybe they can even take them to the police station and register an FIR against them. So most of the times this FIR thing and this complaint never happens. So bribing is the pockets of the police. The corrupt police officials in Pakistan are filled mostly by bootleggers and people who are using liquor. So other drugs are a different story. Most of the cases, like the bribes the police people get, are because of liquor. So this is very important for an illegal, bribe industry as well. So it creates all kind of problems. So somewhat you can also relate it with prostitution as well. If prostitution is legal, then you can have a lot of checks and balances. You can even protect the prostitutes as well, because they are also human beings. No one is allowed to rape them. And you can also protect the consumer as well. So the countries where prostitution is legal, I think they would be much more safe for generally human beings, because prostitutes are the biggest victims of rape, and those rapes 90%, 99% of the times will go unreported. So basically, sometimes legalizing all these things is if you think rationally and wisely, it is very important.
Yeah. So for the sex worker thing, I was in a discussion on Facebook about that, and it does get actually quite complicated. So I think that there's a whole other can of worms there. But we have a question for you. Hold on one second. So 2 questions for you, actually. 1 second. Actually, 3 questions. There's a lot of them piling up. So the first question for you, since we're on the topic of Pakistan, and why is it okay? I live in Indonesia. It's much more moderate than most Arabic countries. Why is Pakistan so different? So I have an opinion on that. Let me just give my opinion, and then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. What I think is it's the Wahhabism. It's the influence of Saudi on the world, and its hardline version of Islam that's causing these issues. What do you think I'm right on that, or is it something else?
But is it because of culture and history? It is because of history. Why? Because if you create a country in the name of, if you form a country, or lay the foundation of a country in the name of some religion, then this religion is always going to have some effect. So Pakistan is one of the 2 countries in the world that were created in the name of religion in the 20th century. So Pakistan was created in the name of Islam, because I am a Pakistani, I'm a Punjabi, and anyone living across the border in India speaks the same language, eats the same food, can understand me very clearly, have the same thought process, same kind of mentality, culture is same, everything is same, but the country is different. The only reason why the borderline was drawn is religion. Hindus were supposed to be in the eastern country, that is India, and Muslims were supposed to be in the farther eastern country, or the western country, that was like Pakistan. So it was created in name of Islam. So, and in 1956, they even included that Allah holds sovereignty in this country. So they included Islam even more into it. Then, the Mullahs started to get powerful with the advent of, what Abdullah is talking about, the advent of petrodollars that were coming from Saudi Arabia and other Islamic countries. So this Wahhabism was getting into the cycle, and they were getting a little bit powerful. Then when Russia came into Afghanistan, what happened was that Pakistan was, also at risk, that if there was peace in Afghanistan, or Russia was successful in Afghanistan, then eventually he will attack. USSR will attack Pakistan. So they also wanted to stop their tracks, the USSR's tracks. So they called US for help, and then they laid a roadmap for US that we are going to start an international jihad movement. So everyone's hands are dirty in this game. US is also dirty. Saudi Arabia is dirty. Egypt is dirty. Even Israel is dirty. Why? Because the largest stockpile of Russian armament, arms, was with Israel at that moment. And using Saudi dollars and American dollars, these arms were being bought from Israel, and they were being taken to Pakistan, and from there they were being smuggled into Afghanistan. So even Israel was involved in that thing. And then, in Pakistan, thousands of Islamic theological schools, the Wahhabi theological schools, which are called madrasas, were opened. And an army of millions of young men, jihadis, was prepared, and they were crossing the border from Pakistan into Afghanistan, and they were fighting against the Russians. And what happened is, like, if you want to motivate someone to fight in the name of Allah, you have to motivate them in a very extreme way, and they are going to be Islamic fundamentalists or extremists. So there is a whole, crop of these people that was sown at that time, and they are going into second and third generation now. Why? Because their fathers, there are people whose fathers fought in Afghanistan, then they fought in even Kashmir, and what happened is, then their sons were also extremists, and now their grandchildren are also extremists. So this is a almost 50-year old history that has happened here, and because of that, Pakistan and Afghanistan have been very extremely religious countries, and all of this thought that exists there affects everything. So if you see that there was a governor of Punjab who spoke for Asia Bibi. He wanted to get her a presidential pardon. So he just talked about Salman Taseer. So Salman Taseer was killed by his own security guard who is Mumtaz Qadri. Why? Because he is of the same mentality that anyone who says anything against Islam, or anyone who even shows some kind of empathy for a person who is accused of or alleged of blasphemy, then that person deserves to be killed. So it is God's holy commandment to kill that person. So this is what they believe in. So people like me or many other people who are in Pakistan who say anything remotely against Islam. So if I am not even being truly critical, like I am not criticizing Islam as it is meant to be, even then I face risk of losing my life or my freedom in Pakistan. So this has happened to so many people.
And Asia Bibi is such a overwhelming situation because she's not an activist. She's just like some lady. Like
she's a normal
nobody.
person. Yeah.
Right? She's a Christian nobody. And the fact that she has to be killed over something so stupid, I mean, it boggles the mind. I don't know what Western Muslims think about this. But I want to get to that. I want to get to blasphemy. But before we get to that, I just want to go to a few more questions that are kind of related to what we were talking about just before. Kalpesh said, my experience with Muslim parents is they're more horrified when the kids try alcohol as compared to cocaine. That would not be my experience as a Muslim father. Let me tell you that. If I was a Muslim father and my kids were doing hard drugs, trust me, I would be like leaving the country or something. Like I would be like locking them up in the house forever. I would be like, that would be the end of their lives, social lives, not the lives. I wouldn't hurt them. Social lives. That would be devastating to me. Alcohol. Yeah, kids drink alcohol. Okay. Over here, it's different. I don't know. I'm talking from my Canadian experience. Okay. I'm not talking about Pakistan. So hard drugs are also haram. They're not like,
yeah, exactly.
The haram, like clearly, even weed. When weed was halal, you had masjids all over the country saying, guys, weed is haram. Astaghfirullah. It's intoxicant. How is it an intoxicant? Like, I don't understand how it's an intoxicant. It's not an intoxicant. It makes you like tired. It makes your food taste better in some ways. It makes you chill out. I think we need more Muslims chilling out.
It makes you focus. It makes you much more focused. You can study for very long hours.
For some people, yeah. Like, for me, I don't know. I think it's different for everybody. That's the other thing too, right? So it's like, I don't know. Like it's like the least harmful.
Yeah, it's
like the least harmful.
In some ways, it is beneficial. In some ways, it's beneficial.
yeah. Like so, that's kind of interesting. And someone else, I'm just going to show this because I do want to highlight disagreement too. He's saying you're incorrect. Drugs like whatever are also banned. Yeah, obviously he didn't say they're not.
I did not say that they are not.
He didn't say that.
But liquor just makes taking that step much more easier, because once you've crossed that line, you can cross the other lines as well.
So exactly. So I think maybe the argument you made went over his head. You were not saying that it's halal or legal or something, just that there's a moral sort of boundary that one needs to cross. And once you cross that boundary and talk to a smuggler or a dealer, it becomes that much easier to just go and do everything else. So in Canada, if I wanted alcohol, I don't need to talk to a smuggler, a dealer. and he's not selling me, he's not like upselling me, hey, you like the alcohol, why don't you also try this drug? I don't have anyone upselling me to hard drugs here. I go to the store, I buy some beer, I drink it, I even go back to and return the bottles, get some money back. So I'm responsible. Exactly. I'm recycling.
So this is a very when things are taken into, I think if a person, if something affects a person's own personality only and someone else is not being harmed by it, then those things needs to have a have a legal structure and bounds and regularities put in place for those things. Though it be, then it goes into so many other kinds of discussions. Even we can even go to the length of talking about assisted suicide here. So these, like, I think if something is affecting only my being, then I am not harming anyone else. Then I should have the legal. There should be a legal framework to get the liberty to have that thing. But when something starts to affect other people, then we have to ban those things. Like there can be many examples of
exactly. And I think it made sense. It makes sense to ban hard drugs because the I don't know, like, I'm not an expert on this topic, but I do think that the harm is way more, right? And people can actually it's so addictive and so dangerous, and so it rewires your brain in a way that it's very difficult to undo. Like, whereas, for example, with alcohol, again, I'm not an expert, I'm just saying based on my personal experiences, I haven't had a beer in like a week, whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, who cares? It's, you drink, you don't drink. Unless someone's a true alcoholic, then they shouldn't be drinking. Or if they have dependency issues in other parts of their life. But we are treating people like adults, and we are saying that people can decide for themselves, and they should be responsible and decide for themselves whether this is good for them. Same thing with weed. Some people have mental health issues in their family. They shouldn't be taking weed because it can trigger issues, right? It can trigger anxiety, paranoia, even hallucinations. Even
alcohol can do that. If you are not mentally sound, then you should stay away from alcohol.
So let's get on to the topic that you mentioned, which is very interesting, which I kind of want to briefly talk about, which is, you said something that I think made a lot of sense, which is that this whole thing about jihad and people being used and kids being used for jihad. Jihad is obviously, as part of the religious doctrine, it's a very easy way for political rulers to use the people and to justify them dying for war, because what better reward can you give them? Not money, but you can tell them that, if you're fighting for God, you're not fighting for me, you're not fighting for the land, you're fighting for the land of the Muslims. But if you die, you will go to Jannah, you will get these rewards. You have these young men who are sexually, like, excited or whatever, the horny basically. And they're not allowed to get married because they don't have money for dowry. They cannot date, they cannot do any of that stuff. And so the only outlet is you tell them, hey, this is, and actual academic papers, and I have seen them, show that this is a real incentive. This is a real incentive for young men, that when they're told, this is the only way you basically, or this is the easiest way for you to get exactly what you want, come and fight for me, come and die for me. People will actually do this and will actually go and fight and die, willingly give their lives, because they're doing it for a greater cause. And unfortunately, this is where there's a book I read by Jonathan Haidt called The Righteous Mind, and he said that we are, I don't remember the percent, he said we are 90% chimp and 10% bee. And what does that mean? He's saying the 10% is the hive mind. We have this sort of evolutionary programming. It's almost like group selection, where as a group, we will do things sometimes for the benefit of the group over their own individual selves. And you can see this, you can feel this when you're marching in an army. You feel like one mind. You connect with the group, right? So this sort of programming is used in many cases in order to make people fight and die for the country. That sort of nationalistic thing, or also, you know, religious sentiment about dying for your people, that's taken advantage of, and people are basically brainwashed into dying, right? I mean, sometimes you have no choice. You do want to protect yourself, but we're not talking about defensive jihad. We're talking about offensive jihad. We're talking about something that's part and parcel of Islam. And this is what people do. They'll go and they'll willingly give their lives for the cause of Allah, so they think. But really what they're doing is they're just pawns. They're being used by the government in order to, you know, grow the army, or grow the land, basically, or, you know, feed the political interests.
So should I talk now? Okay. So basically I have another dimension towards this thing. Like, I've thought long and hard about this. Like, why do people take such an extreme ideology, and why do they kill themselves for these kind of things? What makes a young man of 14 or 15 go to wear a suicide jacket and blow himself up in the middle of a market or anywhere else? So I don't think so that only some kind of bribe or some kind of greed takes this is enough to drive someone towards this thing. To kill oneself, one has to be, you know, in some kind of pain, some kind of guilt, some kind of, you know. So it is not very, very simple. Why? Even when I'm going to explain this, it is not going to be, it is not black and white. There are going to be so many gray areas. There are going to be so many different colors. Every person is different. But there is a mechanism that I think that works towards taking someone to such an extreme measure to, you know, beatify themselves or cleanse themselves of this world of sin. So one thing that I have from my own religious experience and talking to many other friends who have been towards the brink of extremism, I've talked with them, and some of them were also at the brink of becoming jihadis, or going to Kashmir or maybe going to Afghanistan for jihad. So one thing I've felt about this thing, and I've thought long and hard about, is like, Islam is kind of a very difficult religion to follow. That you have to agree with me. Why? Because it asks you to stay hungry for 30 days. It asks you to pray 5 times a day. It asks you to not drink or not do anything like that. It asks you to not look at a woman with a, you know, with some sexual thought in the mind, and there are so many other things. So a young person who is living in a society like Pakistan, where he has access to, you know, he has access to media, he has access to internet, he has access to all kind of entertainment, songs, and all of that. So, you know, when I was young in 1999 or maybe year 2000, at that time there was no internet. So in Pakistan, so if you wanted to watch porn, you had to go to a DVD shop, and you had to rent a DVD, and then you had to bring it at your home, and then you had to wait for a moment where you can there was no one at home, and you had to watch this. So I had a friend. He was a very hardcore type of Muslim who prayed 5 times a day and all of that. So when we used to rent such a DVD and we had to bring it home, and then all of us would copy this, so he would not return that DVD back to the shop. He would burn it. And after watching this porn and feeling the guilt that he's done sin, he would burn it, and he would say, "Now I am saving other people from watching the same thing." So he was feeling thoroughly guilty about what he was doing. Yeah. He was feeling so much guilty about this thing, and if he missed some one of the fasts in Ramadan, he was really guilty. And there are so many young people who feel the same, because, you know, young people are they are totally convinced about what they believe in. Yeah. Like now I am 35 years old. So now my views about things are not that certain as they used to be when I was a teenager, because I used to believe that there is a God, and I was utmost, I had no doubt about that He
You
was
had
a god.
yaqeen.
Yeah, my yaqeen was very strong. So this is how it is. So these people who are going in a street and they look at a girl and they feel, okay, this is haram, I'm looking at her. They watch TV, they listen to music, and then they think that this is haram and I'm going to burn in hell for this. And then they see porn and then they think that this is haram, and they try to be a good Muslim, but they can never achieve the level of perfection that is claimed. That people, when they listen about the stories of Sahaba and Rasulullah, and they think, okay, there were people in the world who never missed a single namaz, who fasted for every year of their life, 30 30 days of Ramadan. So they believe that such a perfection can be achieved. So, but because they are young, they cannot believe that. So they cannot believe that this perfection cannot be achieved. So they blame themselves. So this circle of guilt starts. So every time, even a young man masturbates every time, he's going to think that he's a very horrible kind
Sinful,
of person.
Dirty,
and
shameful.
he's very simple, and he's a dirty, shameful, sinful person who can never stand in front of God. So this kind of guilt, which is for these small things, builds up, and what happens is, in the end, they think, okay, this world is a very evil place, so there has to be an escape from this. So when a mullah indoctrinates such a young man that you should do jihad and you will go to heaven for blowing yourself up, so then this seems to be an easy way out. And also it seems to be the solution for all the religious misery and all the puritanical thoughts that he's having.
And physical misery too, just like the difficulties of this life.
So this misery, this circle of misery only seems to end if he dies as a shaheed and he goes to Jannah. So this also contributes in a way to these things, and that's why young people get inclined towards dying as a martyr. So I don't know how right or wrong I am here, but I've seen people who seem to confirm what I am saying here, because they think that the only solution is to go to Kashmir and die, fight with the Indian soldiers and die a martyr, or maybe go to Afghanistan and do such a thing. But recently all these opportunities of jihad are becoming less and less. So now all those opportunities which are left are only opportunities for terrorism. Now there is no way that a person living in Pakistan, living in Karachi, can go and fight with the mushrikeen or kafar in India, because they cannot cross the border and go to the other side. So what happens in the end is they are enticed by all these Maulvis, and they do suicide bombings and all of these things. So this is how they are being used. So there are political dimensions to this, there are social dimensions to this. Then even in Pakistan, it is said that suicide bombers are sold. There is a different party that makes these suicide bombers, and then they get paid, and they from someone else for their own agenda, and then they do these suicide blasts for political gains or so many other things. So this is very complicated. I don't think that we can just explain it in black and white.
You made a very good point. I actually neglected to mention that what you said about feeling guilty and shameful, that's actually a big part of it. I actually know a guy that he was actually the closest I know to what you would call a jihadi. Actually, he probably was. I mean, I don't know if he actually ended up being a jihadi or not, but like, this guy was in university. I met him, and he was Iranian, and he'd become very religious all of a sudden. He told me his parents are kuffar, and he wanted to join the jihad movement. And I told him, like, and I was Muslim, and I told him, I don't know if you're thinking clearly. You should finish your university. Just take it easy. Just stop being. And he was watching all these videos online, and he told me his motivation was. It was what you just said. It was exactly what you just said. He said, I used to be a bad guy. I used to drink. I used to sleep with women. And I feel guilty about all of that. I need to purify myself. I need to cleanse myself. I need to I need to be clean, right? And so and he kept telling me, like, what's the easiest way to do that is to be a shaheed, to fight in the cause of Allah, to die in the cause of Allah. And he said there's no accountability. And then he talked about all of the hadith and the Quran, even about how scary the day of judgment is. You know, it'll be 10,000 years, you'll be waiting, there'll be no shade, and there'll be this and that. And he was actually like very scared, and he's like, I've done all these terrible things. And I told him, well, you sort of like converted back to Islam. Obviously, you know, God can forgive you, but to him, he wasn't happy with that. It wasn't enough to him that, and that's the thing with religion, right? I mean, it's everybody, there's different ways to interpret it. If you're listening to jihadis like Anwar Avlaki and these guys, they're telling you, you need to fight. This is the best thing ever. And it gives you a sort of purpose in your life. If you don't have a purpose, you have a bad relationship with your parents, you hate your school. I mean, this guy's lucky. He was in one of the best schools in the country, but he didn't care. He just didn't want to take the time to deal with his problems, and he was upset about many things. And like you said, it's complicated. It's not just one thing. For sure, I think the whole sexual sort of promises is part of it. I think the guilt and shame is part of it. I think having a shitty life is part of it too. Some of these people, they just don't have much going for them in life in general, right? And I think intelligence and even though there was many intelligent people, there were many intelligent people that joined ISIS. There was doctors and there was like engineers,
petroleum engineers, and all of these things.
like what the hell is that about? Like, how do all these intelligent people join terrorist movements? Like, what is so? And when you look at people like that, you know that this is now the religion. This is the religious brainwashing. Now, when you have simple-minded people in, you know, whatever country that are not really educated, and from birth they sold this Islamic lie, and then they just get into the extremism. Even in that case, I think that it's lack of, you know, wisdom in life in general that they fall for these things. But even Muslims would condemn that, and Muslims would condemn ISIS too. But the problem is when you have someone that's like fully an adult, he knows what he's doing, he grew up in the West, and then he joined ISIS.
Then, you know,
what else do you blame? The guy had money, he had a life, he had a good, he is not, you can't blame anything but Islam at that point. Like, what do you blame? Like, what else is there? Like, these guys are not even, like, the guys that are joining ISIS are not even Syrian, half of them. They were like Bangladeshi, for example. Like, what does what happening in Syria have to do with a Bangladeshi British young lady or a young man? Nothing.
Nothing. Like, exactly.
The only connection, and the highest, one of the highest fighters in ISIS, John Joygelas, was married to Tanya Joya. This guy is an American-born white Christian. His mom, which made the biggest mistake of her life, she probably, I don't know if she said that, but she bought him a Quran, and he became this freaking extremist leader in the world. He became the top level of ISIS, arguing against other Muslims, telling them based on the Quran and Sunnah, what we're doing is justified. Now, of course, I'm not saying that ISIS is right in the interpretation of Islam, but it is one opinion, one sort of reasonable opinion. Let's say that it's of course, Muslims will not agree with me, and they will say, no, that's totally wrong. He got it all wrong. But if you talk to this guy, he could argue, and he could probably defeat you in an argument based on Islamic sources that what they're doing is right. Because the guy was like, he learned Arabic, he was fluent in the only difference between someone like him and someone like, say, Hamza Yusuf, or Yasir Qadhi, who were completely against terrorism. What is the difference, actually? The difference is, I think the only difference is an appeal to authority. Hamza Yusuf would say that this is not like these guys are reinterpreting the books their own way. They're not going by the scholars, the traditional scholars. So Hamza Yusuf has a way out of it. He says you need to study from certain people only. Yasir Qadhi, being a Salafi, he doesn't really have a good answer, because Salafis don't go by that. Like, they don't care about this sort of chain of transmission like this other ones, like the Sufis or the traditionalists do. So he can condemn it, but he has to cherry pick. At some point, he has to, like, it's just a, you know what I mean? Like what makes the jihadi scholar wrong and what makes the traditional scholar right? I don't know. It's a matter of opinion at the end of the day. Because
then there is, for me, like, are you done there, or
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. But these explanations for any religion, this thing, like how we are going to exercise it, and this is written and this is not written, and this debate that this is the true Islam or this is the true Christianity or this is the true Hinduism, any religion that you pick up, this is all just, this is all, I don't think that this matters even in the end when you start to apply religion. Let's go back.
What doesn't matter? What do you mean?
Let me explain it here. Like, let's go back 100 years. So my grandmother or my someone living in Punjab, I would just talk. Maybe in Arab it would be a different thing, but someone living in Punjab, some old lady, maybe someone's grandmother or someone's great-great-grandmother about 100 years ago, she would have just learned some surahs by heart, Surah Kausar, or maybe Surah Ahad, something like that. Nothing more than that. She would know how to pray, but she does not know what is being said in the prayer. So the kind of Islam she is practicing is the one that has been transmitted to her by people. She has never read the Quran. She has never read the Hadiths. She does not know what fiqh is. She does not know about Bukhari, Muslim, Ibn Majah, Sunan Abi Dawud. She does not know how Quran was compiled. She does not know about Asule Hadith, how a tradition, Hadith is more accurate than the other Hadiths, or how some Hadiths are not reliable. So she does not know anything, but she is practicing Islam. And that Islam is not the Islam of a book, or maybe Islam of Hadith, or maybe something. It is nothing like that. Maybe some people who are living in the Arab world, even they did not know about 125 years, maybe 100 years ago, like how to read Quran or how to read Hadith, or maybe they did not had books of Hadith and they did not know what was said about Jihad and how it was said and all of that. So in the end, it always comes down to what one chooses to follow, what one believes in. So this information age has kind of created a new dilemma for every religion, because now I know that what is written in Bible and where it is coming from. I know that old Mesopotamian tales have been incorporated into the Bible, and now they have been incorporated into the Quran as well. So this thing, these people did not know. So they were just following the religion. So if it comes down to Yasir Qazi or maybe Ghamidi or maybe someone else, in the end, it's just an explanation. How will we say that their explanation is more accurate, or Bukhari's explanation is more accurate, or Waqidi was not reliable and Ibn Hisham is reliable? So these are all relative things. In the end, it only boils down to what someone believes in. So the guy you are talking about, in the end, what he has been contesting about, what he has been saying about, in the end, it just boils down to what someone believes in. And if he knows all the references from some hadith, or maybe some fiqh, or maybe from Ibn Hisham, Tabri, he knows the Islamic history. But the people who are just directly underneath him and they are just blindly following him, most of them are blindly following him. They don't know the same theological or philosophical arguments or Islamic historical arguments that he is presenting. They just believe him. So in the end, it is just belief. It is just belief. Even if for Christianity, it's just belief. For any religion, it's just belief. So whatever interpretation someone is giving, if someone believes that interpretation, then that interpretation has the power to do good and also the power to do harm. So if we talk about ISIS, or if we talk about any other religious cult type organization, though it not be from Islam, from any other religion, it boils down to this thing, that as long as any of the books, or not even the books, any of the traditions or oral traditions or anything has a point in saying that violence is allowed, you can have slave girls, you can attack someone and you can kill them in the name of so and so religion, not Islam, some other religion. So someone is going to exercise it. if there are 10 interpretations of Islam and only one of them is violent, then at least someone is going to practice that interpretation. And there needs not be any kind of theological basis or maybe historical basis for those beliefs. Even then people are going to believe them.
But I think with
religion is destructive.
But
Yes,
I think I sort of agree with you, for example, but I think that it's that I think in particular Islam does actually actually lead good people to do bad things. And you know, the example but the example Sam Harris also always gives is, if you look at an extreme Jain would basically fast forever until he dies. He would not, you know, he would cover his mouth, or she would cover her mouth. She would be sweeping away the bugs, which is weird. So because it's all about not harming others, right? And to the point where they fast for like 2 months and they can almost die from it, right? They won't, some of them will not eat any potatoes because it grows under the ground. Now, these, you know, this thing about I think it's called ahimsa, which is the principle of non-harm. If you take it to an extreme, like Sam Harris is another example of someone that's very, you know, generally was very much into meditation and this and that. And he talks about, like, what if he became a Muslim convert? And the thing is, my point is that even non-violent people can become brainwashed in a very bad way by like hateful ideologies. And I think, unfortunately, I'm not saying like you said, it's not all interpretations of Islam, but Islam unfortunately has way too many things in it which are very, very harmful. The whole thing about jihad, like there's certain beliefs in Islam that cause it to both grow very quickly and also to become very dangerous for the world. One of them is the concept of jihad, the concept of martyrdom. And, you know, basically if you combine these and then the blasphemy law and all of those other things too, you get some, and that's like what Ali Rizvi says. He said the problem with religion in general, but I mean specifically Islam, I don't remember which one he said, is that it puts on the same level feeding the poor and like killing apostates. Like both of those are considered good deeds. And I know that's what you're saying, but I do think, you know, that there's a little bit more to it. It's specifically with Islam, I do think there's so many harmful ideas in there that the scholars have to find ways. Like this guy is saying Islam is a religion of peace. People aren't. Well, what are they following then? Like where are they getting these ideas of dying for the sake of Allah? Where are they getting all of these? Like where ISIS, you know, the funny thing is, you have ISIS who is saying that they're Islamic and people are saying they're not Islamic. And as Abdul Hamid Samad said on my show earlier, you have people that are praising Islam for when a soccer player that's wearing hijab is winning. They're saying, oh, look, this is Islam. But when ISIS is doing it, they're saying this is not Islam. Yet the soccer example has nothing to do with Islam. The ISIS example has everything to do with Islam. Now, I do disagree with a lot of the comments, and I don't want to go on and on about this. Islam, there is no right, and I know you agree with me, there is no true Islam. There's no right Islam, and ISIS is not the true Islam or right Islam. ISIS is one interpretation of Islam. And people that are saying that ISIS is more Islamic, I don't think you can say that, because the entire process, and I don't want to keep going on and on about this because I've said this so many times. The entire process of coming up with Islam is a human interpretation. The whole fiqh, how you come up with the ruling, like Yasir Qadhi's Islam, Hamza Yusuf's Islam, and ISIS Islam are all valid interpretations of Islam. Muslims will say one of those is the only valid one and the other two are not. Like Sufis will say that Yasir Qadhi is misguided because he's Salafi and he follows Albani and Ibn Taymiyyah. Yasir Qadhi will say Hamza Yusuf is misguided and ISIS is misguided because of so and so. They all have the reasons for believing what they believe in, but they're all going back to the same texts, right? So we can't say one of them is better than the other because all of them are human interpretations.
There is a reason why this is so. There is a reason. There is a very simple reason for this. If you look at Christianity, if you want to explain what Christianity says for evangelical Christian or for a Catholic or for anyone else, you would just need Bible and you can explain everything that exists within the Christianity. You would need very, very little outside it to explain what is. And similarly for Judaism. But Quran is such a lame book. It is totally ambiguous. It is self-contradictory at so many points. it is, it is kind of a book that is incomplete in so many ways. It is totally illogical as well. So to explain such a thing that is totally ambiguous, leaves you in so much doubt and so many other things. You cannot even tell who Muhammad was from Quran. You cannot tell where he was born from Quran. You cannot tell anything about Islam from so many things that are the Islamic creed. You cannot tell how to pray, where Makkah is, how to perform Hajj. You cannot do this. All the 5 pillars of Islam that are, you can talk about all of these things, but you cannot quote anything valuable from within the Quran to explain those things. So now you have a lame book that is basically, what you would say is incomplete. Then you need a plethora of other material to explain it. Now comes the Hadith. Hadith is kind of, Bukhari came 212 years after Muhammad. And then there is Hisham, there is Tabari, there are so many other, there is Al-Razaki, there are so many other kind of Islamic histories. So you cannot rely on Quran, only on Quran. You cannot rely. If you try to explain what Islam is only from Quran, you cannot. If you try to explain what Islam is only from Hadith, you cannot. If you try to explain what Islam is only from the history, Islamic history by Ibn Hisham, Tabari, Waqdi, whoever you name it, you cannot explain it from any of these. You cannot explain Islam from only the books of fiqh that were written by different kind of ulama. So where do you come to truly explain what Islam is? So the kind of scholarship that is required to arrive at even a simple conclusion about Islam requires a lot of learning. Like, you have to be very fluent in Arabic.
Yeah.
When Arabic is not even your first language, then you have to learn all of these things, and then you can conclude something about Islam.
Which is why most people just go by scholars.
Everyone is confused in that. Even the most learned scholars can be confused. Why? Because
but the thing is, what you're saying is true, which is why most Muslims, especially non-Salafis, do not even bother with any of this. They just go by the scholars. They'll go to the imam, they'll go to the mufti, they'll ask the sheikh online, dear sheikh so and so, I had a wet dream and I woke up and I'm fasting.
Yeah.
What do I do? I mean, like, they don't want to think for themselves. They want to outsource the thinking, because the burden of learning Islam is very high. Like you said, you need to know all of these things, and it's portrayed that way too. Now Salafis, of course, are very different. They will go directly into the books. They will learn the Bukhari and Muslim, and I think there's now, my experience in Canada is that most Muslims are engaging, not most Muslims, sorry, the group I was in, the very religious group of Salafis, are very much engaging with the text. They're learning it, they're listening to Islamic lectures, they're trying to read the Quran directly. But what I wanted to say was, I don't agree that the Bible, you can just read the Bible to understand Christianity, because even the Bible is contradicting itself all over the place. And this is why, you had the different, what do you call them? The doctrines that the church fathers came up with about the Trinity, and the what's the word for that? There's a specific term for, they come up with these easy to learn, like phrases about Jesus and his Father and the Son, the Holy Ghost, and all of that.
Basically, when I was saying about Bible, that basically, if for a Christian, he does not need to go to other books to read and say that this is Christianity. They can read. Yeah, there are contradictions in the Bible. It is equally as wrong as Quran, and even more wrong in so many things. But they have a text that is precise, and they can just read it and say that they are Christian. They don't. A normal Christian does not need to read Hadiths to understand what Christ said, because it is all written in the gospel there.
Yeah.
So they don't need to go to Hadiths, and there are not thousands of Hadiths. There are just a few thousand verses in the Bible that are mostly 4 gospels have the same sayings of Christ, and it's just over there.
But do you find the Bible is approachable by common Christians? Is it?
Yeah. Bible, if I talk about 100 years ago, then it's the same problem that I was discussing here.
Yeah.
But it is approachable by Christians, because if in Pakistan you can find it in a very easy Urdu, you can read it. You can find, you go to India and you can get it in Tamil as well. Bible has been translated into so many other things, so many other languages. But Quran, translation is a big problem. Muslims even don't believe that reading Quran in another language will give them sawab. You know that.
Yeah.
So this is a problem. Other religions also have problem. Like Christianity have huge problem. This guilty conscious thing that I was talking about, maybe I would talk about it some other time. Even the Apostle Paul, Jesus Christ's Apostle Paul, had a guilty conscience. That's why he went so far ahead and he created the whole religion of Christianity. So maybe we can talk about that.
What do you think about what Zubair al-Muhajir is saying? You can rely on Quran to understand the core message of Islam. Do you want to answer that, or should I answer that?
You can answer that.
Okay, so the Quran, obviously, by itself, yes, you can understand the core message that there's one God, but like 99% of Muslims would not agree with Quranism, because the Quran, and even the challenge for academics, I'm reading a book right now by Sean Anthony called Empires of Faith, and let me tell you, it's a massive challenge to interpret the Quran without the Sirah and the Hadith. Exactly. Because like Ghalib was saying, that it's not clear what it's talking about half of the time. And so when a lot of the times when you're reading a translation, and I didn't realize this until I was Muslim for a few years, every single translation is a tafsir. Seriously. Like the literal translation would be totally meaningless in some cases, because you don't even know what it's talking about. Like some of the words, even they're like ambiguous. Al mursalati urfa, like, wal adiyati dabaha. Like, what is that even talking about? Like the horses and the dust, and is it like, it's so ambiguous when it's talking about the battles. What battle is it talking about? When it said that they fell asleep and then they woke up and blah blah blah, and what is it talking about? It's talking about the Battle of Badr. So historians have struggled with this, because obviously the easiest way to interpret the Quran is to go back to the Sirah, and then the Sirah gives you context for the Quran. But the problem is the Sirah comes way after, and the Hadith come way after. So for someone that's looking, what I've realized is, it's a whole other discussion when you want to talk about the historical Islam, the historical Quran. I'm not even talking about that, because that's a massive undertaking to unearth the real truth. What we go by, what we talk about usually, is what Muslims believe, which is orthodoxy, which is what is the accepted sort of norm, right? And there's another related question to this, which is, do you believe that Muhammad existed? Do you want to answer? Should I answer as well?
Muhammad, most probably, basically, if you see that the first archaeological evidence for someone related to Islam who existed was Muawiyah. Like there are coins that are minted. Muawiyah's name is minted on that, and it is written La ilaha illallah. There is no Muhammadan Rasulullah written on those coins. So if you talk about Muhammad, probably he existed, but did he claim to be everything that we believe him to be today? That I am very much doubtful of.
So I basically think he did exist, and I think I'm going to go with the so before I started this, you could say I was skeptical, and I wasn't really sure about what the situation was, but I'm going to share my screen here. Again, what my approach is, the reason I'm like successful in what I do is because I've been talking about what I know, and what I know is Islam as it's conveyed to Sunni Muslims. So I know Orthodox Islam. What I don't know as well, and what is much more difficult, is the Islam of history, the actual historical truth. Now, I'm going to share my screen because I think there's some interesting quotes, right? And so, like I said, I was reading this book, and this is Muhammad and Empires of Faith, right? Mm-hmm. And so he is trying to piece together the evidence about the historical Muhammad, right? And he said the 4 cardinal sources upon which all research into historical Muhammad hinges: the Quran, epigraphic, documentary, and archaeological evidence, contemporary and near-contemporary non-Muslim accounts written primarily in Armenian, Greek, and Syriac, and Arabic literary sources, which are mostly but not exclusively preserved in the Sirah, Maghazi literature, and Hadith corpus. So, what you said, that the Muhammad of Ibn Ishaq and the Muhammad of the Hadith is not historical, that's probably true. A lot of it is how, like he said, the traditions may appear to be historical, but in the current and modern scholarship holds that such traditions are fundamentally exegetical. I don't even know how to say that word, rather than historical nature. Basically, what Muslim scholars wanted Muhammad to be portrayed as, not what he actually is, what they wanted him to be seen as. For example, in the Sirah of Ibn Ishaq, there's evidence that he has borrowed from the Bible. Like the whole story about
even Tabari.
Yeah.
Creation of universe, Tabari borrows heavily from Bible.
So there is evidence from the doctrine of is it Jacobi? Where is it? I'm trying to find it. Basically, there is non-Muslim sources that actually do talk about evidence. So I haven't looked into, for example, Tom Holland and all of these very far out revisionists that say Muhammad never existed, and all of this was from the later caliphs, Abdul Malik al-Marwa, whatever.
Abdul Malik bin Marwan.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know anything about. I haven't studied that, but it does seem to be the case that there is evidence that there was a prophet, right? And within the early 700s, basically. Oh, here we go. One of the earliest and most important historical testimonies to Prophet Muhammad can be found embedded in a Byzantine apologetic tract known as Doctrine Jacobi, I don't know, Teaching of Jacob. And basically, this is a non-Muslim source that basically talked about a prophet that appeared among the Sarakians who claims to be possessing the keys to paradise, right? And then he explains it in detail. So this is very, very difficult. This topic, you have to realize, even for someone that's Muslim, nobody knows.
34 AD, 634 AD. Muhammad died in 632.
Yeah, so this is a very, very difficult topic, and I'm just going to stick to what the scholars say. So basically, what I believe is that a lot of these revisionist claims, for example, the Petra theory, I used to wonder whether it's true. If I wrote on my blog that I'm not sure what to think about this.
I wrote about it in Urdu.
Okay.
21 episodes in Urdu.
Wow.
Admin of Pakistani Free Thinkers. His pen name is Haji Mast Ali. He and we wrote 24 episodes about Petra.
So what do you think about it?
I think that makes a lot of sense because these early mosques, they all point towards Petra. Then there is a gradual change of occurring. Then there are mosques that point towards the line towards the midpoint of the line joining Makkah and Petra. Then in the 2nd century only, and in the 3rd century, towards the start of the 3rd century, towards the end of the 2nd century, the mosques start to point towards Mecca. So it makes a lot of sense because then there are so many other things like Mecca is not mentioned even once in history by anyone before Islam. Even after 100 years after Islam, it is very difficult to talk about Mecca. Then there is this other thing about so many wars that they have fought. Like if I talk about Ghazwa Khandak, the Khandak is in the north of Medina. Khandak is in the north of Medina. The old town Medina, the Masjid al-Nabawi and all of that, it lies in the south of the Khandak. So if Meccans were attacking, so why were they attacking from the north, and why did the Muslims need to build the Khandak dig the Khandak dig the trench in the north? If the enemy was coming from the south, why were they digging it in the north? They should have dug it in the south because the south from Medina is totally open, and it was totally open. And even today, the Route 15 that comes from Makkah to Medina, it is very much accessible and it is totally open. So why were they not attacking from there, and why did they go to the north and attack from there?
So these are all...
even the mountain of Uhud is in the north, not in the south.
these are all very good questions, but basically I'm going to go back again to what the scholars have said. And here you can see that there is actually inscriptions in the south of Mecca from the 1st century Hijri that actually talk about evidence for Islam being true, right? And, you know, basically, you know, this is Sean Anthony. So this is the same guy who wrote the book. And this is, again, a scholar that I've referred to time and time again, professor, historian, Orientalist. And I'm just going to appeal to authority here. If he says it's a silly claim, I'm just going to go with what he said, because I think that it's beyond the ability of me to really go into and understand this. And this is, in case you're wondering, this is my throwaway account I created so that I could check why I got shadow banned on Twitter. I just created a new account. That's why it says. So yeah, so basically this is a problem. Like I think that this is a monumentous task for us to go through, and I think you know, Dan Gibson has other beneficial things that he's talked about, but unfortunately, in my opinion, the academic evidence, and I'm not an academic, and I'm not a scholar of history, and I don't know any of these things. I'm just going to go by the people that I trust, and I trust Sean Anthony, I trust Marjin Van Putten, and these other guys, and these are the guys I'm referring to over and over again when I say that I think academics on Islam are going to demolish Islam. And people like me and you know, what we can do is we can do our best to kind of bring forward these claims, like for example Dan Gibson, and we can bring them to light, and they actually raise a lot of good questions, right? I mean,
there should be a counter narrative to what history they are telling, because this is very important, because if there is something else there, then at least they would think about it.
Yes, exactly. I really do think that, you know, this is, even though we might be wrong about some things, the fact that we're bringing it up, we're raising questions, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. Let's say I believe the Petra thing was true. Now, after evidence,
But I think that to some degree, there are some truths in it. But what I think is like, to my thinking, what I think is like, there has been something very wrong at the beginning of Islamic history, because the beginning is not very reliable.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't know even if there was a guy named Muhammad, he even claimed to be a prophet.
I think we do. I do think we do. I disagree with you on that. And I think if you look at the book by Sean Anthony about Muhammad Empire of Faith, I do think there's enough non-Muslim evidence that shows that Muhammad did exist. And
like there are a few things that about Quran. If I come to the Quran, then there is something like the script that we find the earliest Qurans in did not exist at the time of the Muhammad. The scribes of Wahi, who used to write Wahi down, they were writing Quran in 3 different scripts, not the same one. They were writing it down in 3 different scripts. Then they say that Quran was revealed and it was completed in the life of Muhammad. But you know, we know this more than enough that Quran was never completed by Muhammad. Maybe even we find Sahih Hadiths in Bukhari, which say that there was a verse that talked about Rajam. Then you know,
stoning. Yeah.
Surah Tawbah was equally as long as Surah Ahzab, and there are so many hadiths like that which talk about, and there were verses of Quran that were many Sahaba remembered so many verses of Quran that were not included in Usman's Mus'haf, the Quran that Usman compiled. Then you know, for me it's a very big question, like why Usman was killed. For me it's a very big question. Why? Because I don't believe that he was killed only because his governors were drinking. He was not only killed because of that. Maybe there was something much more sinister there why he was killed.
Well, the story is that, anyways, yeah, it's a long story about that. Yeah. You know, I'm trying to find I actually asked the scholars. So basically, when I say scholars, I mean the real scholars like Marjin Van Putten, Haytham, Shady. I'm trying to find I actually asked them about this. I asked them about this hadith about the goats eating the surah, the hadith about the breastfeeding that used to be in the Quran and all that. And I'm actually waiting for them they haven't answered me yet. I asked them the exact same thing, because the hadith claims that there were actually more verses in the Quran that have disappeared, right? And I'll share my screen one more time. It shows right here that these are the hadith that you're talking about, right? That there was verses of Surah Ahzab that was missing, and there's another one that says there was a verse of stoning and breastfeeding that's now gone, right? And then there's there's a lot of hadith that talk about these missing verses, right? Like you were just mentioning. And so I actually asked them in the conversation, like, if you guys are saying that the Quran is actually, for the most part, most of it is there, what do you think about these hadith? Like, do you have any? And so far they haven't answered me. Like, Marjan Van Putten actually did not answer the question. He said, I don't know anything about the hadith. He just declined to answer. He said, I haven't looked into it. So I'm waiting for an answer. I'm hoping that, as time, this is because we brought these up in a conversation. Abdullah Gondal and I brought up these hadith that from the Sunni sources that claim that there's missing verses. And we want to know, well, does this match what the academics are seeing, right? And so far, I haven't got an answer, but it'd be interesting to know. So
but
anyways,
but the Petra theory hypothesis, like these questions are very valid. Why the Khandak is in the north, or why Hussein was killed in the north rather than the south if he was coming from Makkah? Like, why is Maidan Karbala, the Karbala is in the north of Kufa? It is not in the south, because if he was coming from Makkah, then he should have been killed in the south somewhere, not in Karbala. Then Khandak, then Uhud, both of them are in the both of these places are in the north. And then there is another thing, like I wrote about this, like now this is coming to the concept of God and all of that. Like, the chief god deity of Makkah was Hubble.
Okay.
Hubble was the god that was worshipped in Makkah.
Hubble.
Yeah, Hubble. Yeah. Now I'm calling this Hubble. Why? Because I will tell you now.
Okay.
So there was a Caesar, like a Roman emperor named Heliogabalus, and he created on one of the mountains of Rome, the highest one, he created a special temple dedicated to the god Elgabalus that he had taken back from Turkey when he was doing conquest there. So this kind of god, what was this god? Like, now this god was Elgabalus, and Elgabalus is basically the Romanized form of Hubble. Now I will tell you how this is like. So this Hubble god was, his sanctuaries was like similarly to Makkah, like Kaaba. So his stones were meteorites that fell from the heaven, and there were different temples about these meteorites, and one such temple was in Turkey. So he imported that god from Turkey and took it back to Rome, and then there he created this created this temple on the mount in Rome. So basically, the area of Petra, it is known as the area of Shara Mountains. And the chief god of this Petra region was Zoshara. And its complete name is Zoshara Hablu. Zoshara Hablu is the complete name of that god. And when they talk about the Makkans having Hubble as their chief deity, and then we see that get no information in Makkah about this Hubble, the god Hubble. We don't see any kind of inscriptions there. We haven't found any kind of idols or even a inscription in the caves of Makkah. There are so many caves around Makkah. We haven't seen any kind of inscription related to that god there. But the area in Petra is filled with Zoshara Hablu's paintings and inscriptions and all of these things.
These would be good questions.
Raises a very big question, like.
Yeah, these would be good questions to bring to someone like Sean Anthony or someone that studied this, because obviously I wouldn't be able to really, they're very good questions, and honestly, I think I'm not equipped enough to kind of get into that. So it's been 90 minutes now, and I want to thank you definitely for coming on the show. Do you have some time to take a few questions?
Yeah, of course. No
Okay,
issue.
perfect. So again, I'm joined by Ghalib Kamal. He's a free thinker, a Pakistani free thinker. Do check out his website, ghalibkamal.com. For some reason, it doesn't load for me right now, but we're going to check that out. Also, his channel is linked in the description box and the title. You can click on the name and subscribe to his channel as well, especially if you speak Urdu. Although I do you have English videos as well?
I have a few, like I have done a few with few in English.
Okay.
But there's not that much material in English, maybe a dozen videos in English.
Okay. So especially if you're an Urdu speaker, Hindi speaker, please do subscribe to Ghalib Kamal and support him. And if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing and even joining the channel. For as little as $2 a month, you can tell YouTube, hey, this channel is good. I want to give you money and I want to support him. So this is actually like a bigger sign to YouTube, even more than simply subscribing, that you value the content of this channel. And obviously, I really need that. As you know, I just got shadow banned on Twitter. You can no longer search for Abdullah Samir on the search bar. Hopefully it's a temporary thing. I don't know. But, these social media giants do tend to sometimes cave into public pressure. And there's a lot of public pressure, even in the West, for people like myself. We get in a lot of they get in a lot of trouble for hosting our content. They personally, I think they don't care, but they don't want to be seen as bad guys that are demonizing religion or something like that. Even though we are trying to be fair, we are definitely saying don't attack Muslims, respect Muslims or whatever, as individuals, but that don't necessarily respect the ideology, which is harmful and evil in some ways. So please do consider supporting me. I would appreciate it very much. Thank you so much. Now, to get to the questions, once you've, okay. Is there any motivation other than post-mortal life that makes a believer devout? Do you want to go to that first?
You can.
So basically, what motivates believers to be religious? I think the hereafter, the next life, is probably one of the most important motivations, but it's more than that too, right? I always think of my mom. My mom, she fasts Ramadan, but she's sort of agnostic in some ways, and she doesn't really care about the religious rulings per se, but she fasts. And I asked her, why do you fast? And, she says, oh, it's tough to fast and this and that. And I'm like, why do you fast then? And she's like, I've been fasting since I was a kid and I'm going to fast. So she's happy to do it because she was just raised that way and she wants to continue fasting. So I think there's more than one motivation for people. I think that it could be cultural. It could be like, for example, there's some kind of weird things, I don't want to open up any can of worms here, but like, for example, FGM and, for example, honor killings, those things are not condoned per se by the religion. Let's say honor killing specifically, you're not allowed to kill your daughter in Islam, yet you find religiously inspired Muslims, or sometimes not religiously inspired, but like Muslims will do these things more than non-Muslims. And how does that happen? How does, honor killing become a thing? I think it's very complicated because the religion condemns you for killing your, in these cases, but also it promotes the values that actually lead to that. So it's a difficult kind of conversation, right? So it's not always just hereafter. There's many things. Did I miss anything? What else motivates people to become devout? I think also people around you, right? Like the other Muslims, you wanna look good to them. You wanna fit into the community, so you will make a sacrifice that will be esteemed by others in the society. Sorry, I just thought of that. Go ahead.
I think the sense of belonging, maybe in a way, sense of achievement as well, sense of feeling, kind of better, because religion also makes you feel better in some ways when you are doing something. There's a sense of achievement as well. If someone is fasting for 30 days of Ramzan or praying 5 times a day, it is, at the end of the day, it's a huge achievement for them. So they think that they've achieved something, though it is, it's nothing, but in the end they feel this thing. And when you achieve something, then you get, there is a positive mindset that you get into. So it could be that as well. But but it in the end, it even boils down to the individual person, that what they achieve out of religion. So for me, maybe something else is important. For someone else, it is going to be entirely something totally different. So that is how it is. For some people, even when they are non-religious, like for someone living in the West, they belong to a totally non-religious family, and all of a sudden a teen goes and he accepts Islam. So his only purpose is to rebel against his parents, maybe. So there could be so many reasons. It is not possible to define everything here. So this is what I think.
It's a good answer. We didn't even really get to talk about blasphemy. So just to give it a little quick overview, unfortunately, in a way, it's good that we're going, the conversation was flowing and it went in different directions. It went into Petra and went into the historical Muhammad. I mean, these are all very interesting topics, but we wanted to talk about blasphemy. So can we just let's end on that. Let's talk about, the most important thing here that we wanted to talk about that we somehow missed. Can you tell me about what's the blasphemy law in Pakistan, how it's used against minorities, and what you think about that? And basically, I think that's part of the reason why you had to leave Pakistan, right, back in 2017 or whatever.
Basically, Pakistan's blasphemy law is basically a remnant of the British blasphemy law that was basically to keep the different religious communities in peace. No one says anything against someone else's religion. So there was maybe a 6 months or a 2-year prison or some fine for the British blasphemy law. That is the 295A of Pakistani Penal Code. So that is a general blasphemy. If you say anything about religion, then you are going to get the 295A. But then there is a 295B and a 295C. Basically, the 295B is if you insult the Quran or you desecrate a copy of Quran, if you burn a copy of Quran, or you in some way insult the Quran, then you can, at first it was like you can have life imprisonment for desecrating Quran. And then there is this 295C. At first in 295C, basically if you insult Prophet Muhammad, you say something that insults his name, you write something that insults his name. There were two punishments depending upon what the judge decides. There was a life imprisonment and then there was death penalty. So, but about a decade ago, it was changed only to death penalty. So now, and even in some cases now, for desecrating a copy of Quran, a person can be sentenced to death. So the level of punishment was increased and made more severe. And now basically these blasphemy laws have been used time and again against the religious minorities, especially Christians were the first victims of this. No one is safe from it. Even Muslims have been at the receiving end of blasphemy allegations and accusations, and people have faced the worst because of this. But Christians were kind of the most prime victims, and the first prominent and famous cases were filed against Christians. And it is not only the law that is dangerous. No one has been ever sentenced to death because of the Pakistani blasphemy laws till now. Because once the lower courts are always under pressure from the Islamic extremists. So what happens is the lower courts always sentence a person to death. Then in high court, when an appeal is made, when the case goes into the high court, most of the times the high court judges, they withdraw the charges and they release the person. And even if this same decision comes from the high court, till now Pakistani Supreme Court has always given acquittal to the people who have been accused of blasphemy. Though it be the case of Asia Bibi, which is very famous. She was a year ago released, and now she's living in Canada. Then there was a very popular case of 1994 that started in 94 and ended in 97. That was the Barkat Masih case. He was a young boy of 14 years of age. He was accused of blasphemy. And then he was even sentenced to death. But the decision was overturned by the Supreme Court, and Asma Jahangir, the late Asma Jahangir, who is one of the very prominent human rights lawyers in Pakistan, She was the lawyer that represented Barkat Masih, and he got free. And now we don't know where he is, but he also got asylum in some other country. So then there was a case of Rimsha Masih, a girl who was mentally retarded, and she was also alleged of blasphemy. And but later on she was released and went. She also went abroad, because it is impossible for people, high profile blasphemy cases, who are the people who are alleged in high profile blasphemy cases, to live in Pakistan even after this. They are released by the court. Then there are extrajudicial killings. Mashal Khan, famously Mashal Khan, a university student, back in 2017, he was killed by his own university students. There was a mob that lynched him to death on just an allegation of blasphemy. There was no court case, nothing. He was just lynched to death, and the social media became viral because the video was like being shared all over social media in Pakistan. So this is how it is. Then we all already talked about Salman Taseer, the late governor of Punjab, who was killed by his own security guard because he was showing an intention to get a presidential pardon for Asia Bibi in any case. Then there was Minister of Minorities Shahbaz Bhatti. He was a Christian. He was also killed. He was shot dead in Islamabad. No, sorry, I don't know. I don't remember where he was killed, but he was also killed. So this is what blasphemy law brings in Pakistan. Like it has been used against the minorities to overpower them. In most cases, I know many people from minority Christian community who have lost their businesses, who have lost their money, their homes because of the blasphemy law. Because if there is a legal problem, or there is some kind of conflict between a Muslim and a Christian or a Hindu, then blasphemy law is almost, it is becoming a fashion. It is used to overpower them, to threaten them that we are going to use blasphemy against you if you keep coming at us through legal means or whatever. So many other type of quarrels end in blasphemy allegations. So it is always like that. There is a very famous case of a Christian couple who were working at a brick factory. Brick factories in Pakistan are famous for bonded labor. Why? Because they give some kind of small loans to these laborers, and then they start to work at that brick factory, and they deduct some portion of their income as the recovery for that loan. So these people who were working at that brick factory, they had an intention of leaving that brick factory and going to some other brick factory, going to work at some other brick factory, because it is such a cheap labor that most of the times the brick factory owners entice these people in by giving them loans or these kind of things. So it is basically bonded labor. So when they showed this intention of going to work for someone else, then this allegation of blasphemy was brought against them, and they were both lynched. And then, as they were alive, they were thrown into the same brick kiln where they used to cook the bricks, and they were both burned alive. And the woman, whose name was Shama, she was 6 months pregnant at that.
They were Christians?
They were both Christians. This was a Christian couple, and they had 3 children, and their eldest son was only 8 years old, and they were killed in front of that child. So this is how difficult things have been, how already marginalized and severely persecuted minorities of Pakistan are being even more persecuted in name of blasphemy in Pakistan. So blasphemy law is kind of a political tool as well. It is used against so many people. Like there was a Pakistani singer who turned Tablighi, Junaid Jamshed, if you know. Junaid Jamshed was a pop singer in the 90s, and I grew up listening to his pop songs. There were many famous. He was the most celebrated pop singer of the 90s in Pakistan. So he turned into a Tablighi. He started to preach Islam. So one day he said something about Aisha that was, and it was said that he had committed blasphemy by saying this thing for Aisha, that he said that Aisha was a woman, and even after staying in company of Prophet Muhammad, she was not fully, rehabilitated. She still was stupid. This kind of remarks he passed about Aisha. So this was considered blasphemy, and he had to, he had to ask for forgiveness from the Pakistani masses, and he had to come on TV and he had to say so many things. And there were so many people who were saying that he should be killed, because saying anything against al-Mu'mineen Aisha is saying something against the honor of the Prophet. So this is how things become difficult even from the preachers of Islam in Pakistan. If
Oh, yeah.
something, so it's such a touchy topic right now that there was another incident that there is a very famous social media, not social media. There's an actress by the name of Veena Malik, and she went to India and she had some kind of controversial pictures that were semi nudes and all of that. So when she came back to Pakistan, and she had a wedding, and a morning show was after her wedding. A morning show host asked her and her husband to come to the show, and they sang a naat there, a naat or a song that was, some people say, sung on the wedding of Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Fatima. So when that was they sing that in that program, that same song. So the allegation of blasphemy was brought against the show host, the producer, that actress, her husband, and everyone that was involved in that program. And then a case was filed against them. I don't know what is the status of this, but this is how it is used. In anything you can use blasphemy law. Like if the government comes under pressure, what they do is there are so many cases that are filed in so many Pakistani courts. So one of these cases becomes prominent when the government is in trouble. This has happened in the previous government. This has happened in this government as well. So this is what they do. Most of the times, this is what they are doing. Now there is a right-wing party that is known as Tehreek-e-Labbaik Ya Rasulullah. So that party has their whole political agenda that they have to strictly enforce the blasphemy laws, because they say that the blasphemy laws are never respected by the Pakistani courts. No one has been hanged to death till now by the blasphemy law. So they are in favor of killing people, killing blasphemers before they go to the court. So they
Yeah.
think that justice
Wow.
should be done there and then in case of blasphemy. So this is what the natural.
That's awful. It's just people are so brainwashed that they think that it's worth killing over. And this is one of the worst things about Islam. Again, I go back to Islam, because Islam says that a Muslim, you should never kill a Muslim if you're a Muslim. I mean, you can't kill anyone in general, but especially a Muslim. But if they leave Islam, that apostasy law becomes valid at that point, right? So it becomes worse if you're an apostate. I guess blasphemy as well is not necessarily apostasy, because you're saying it's used against Christians, so it's a different case. But it's again being used as, the honor of the Prophet and all that. So it's just tragic. You're saying they want to kill people now because they don't think the courts are going to kill them, so they want to kill them themselves.
And most recently, it has been used against activist human rights defenders like myself. There were in the start of 2017, 4 of our bloggers, some of them happened to be my friends. They were abducted by Pakistani intelligence agencies because of some other reasons. Then they were released because there was a lot of public pressure. And what happened is, when they were released, to just silence people who were vouching for them, an allegation of blasphemy was brought against them. Then they were arrested later on in March for some other people as well, accusing them of blasphemy. And many of these people are facing cases in court. And now recently, university professors have been accused of blasphemy. And now a university professor was arrested in Sindh province, charged of blasphemy, and this guy has been arrested. Then almost about 7 years ago, there was Junaid Hafiz. He was also a university professor. He was arrested on the allegation of blasphemy, and this poor guy is on trial for the last 7 years, and his trial is still not concluded even in the trial court. So this is how long waits. Even when there is a case in the court, then the Maulvis and these Muslim clerics start to pressurize the judges. And Junaid Hafiz's lawyer, Rashid Rahman, he was killed because he was being threatened to not represent Junaid Hafiz in court, and later on he was killed because he refused to leave the case.
What do Muslims do? Do Muslims in Pakistan think this is the right thing to do, to kill people before they go to cases? Is the mullahs doing all this?
But mullahs are building this kind of narrative that people should be killed there and then, because courts never give the right decision. None of the blasphemers have been hanged so far.
Isn't that treason to tell people? I don't know if it's treason, but you're telling people to break the law. Isn't that a crime? Isn't that a crime?
But this should be a crime. But according to Islam, Sharia comes before the Pakistani Penal Code. So according to, when the mullah says that the Sharia says this, so people just believe it, and people really believe that Islamic Sharia should be exercised in case of blasphemy or so many other things that happen there. So this is really alarming for people like me and so many people who talk about human rights, or who talk about women rights, or who talk about rights of minorities. Even if you talk about the rights of a Qadiani or Ahmadiyya Muslim in Pakistan, you can be very much accused of blasphemy. There would be an allegation of blasphemy against you, because this is totally crazy there.
This is totally crazy. Like, I don't even know what to say when I hear such things, that even to talk about, even to have a court case, even to try to reform it, even to try to discuss it, you can be killed, basically. It's just awful. I mean, it's so bad.
There have been people who have been, a case for blasphemy has been filed against them just for liking a post on social media that is derogatory towards Islam. They did not make that post themselves. They did not make that comment themselves, but they just only liked that post or comment, and they are facing charges for blasphemy in Pakistan. Wow. So this is how crazy things are in Pakistan when it comes to blasphemy. So basically the mullahs are trying to exercise their power through blasphemy law. This is what is happening. So this is just basically the power of the mullah that this blasphemy law is protecting.
Yeah, that is so unfortunate. Anyways, I want to thank you for coming on the channel and for, raising awareness about these important issues. Obviously, you speak directly from the heart. You've lived in Pakistan, you're Pakistani, and you know these things. It's unfortunate that you had to leave the country of your birth, just because of all of this nonsense. It's sad and it's tragic. And I hope that the price that you pay, people like yourself and others that are speaking about Islam, that had to pay a very heavy price to speak about Islam. And I hope that, that the world will change, that the effects are taking place already. And we didn't get to talk about that. Like the number of people that talk to you about leaving Islam, the change that's happening at the ground level. Yeah, it's a lot actually. And we hear this all the time. I hear this from Harris Sultan and Abdullah Gondal. He gets friends message him from that he knows from before, that are telling him that they saw his posts and first they're angry, now they're like actually happy. And so there is a change happening, and I really do appreciate the work you're doing. I hope that you're able to reestablish your life. Once everything is settled down, we're going to talk about your story and what happened. I want you to come back on my channel.
I would like to tell my story someday when I'm in a more comfortable situation. And I will thank you for giving me this opportunity to come at your channel and express myself. And I cannot thank you enough. And I really appreciate your work. And I have been following you for at least maybe 7 or 8 years. I don't remember exactly, because I even knew about you when you were a Muslim. And
wow.
You were an apologist. So I really appreciate how you have changed and what kind of difference you are making. And let me tell you that you are making a lot of difference. And the people like us are increasing day by day. I am seeing so many new channels spring up on YouTube. And the people on Facebook, I cannot even count. In 2014 when I started, there were a handful of people. I can count them on my fingers, like the people who were talking about religious dogma. They were criticizing Islam. But now there are people in thousands, and I think this is going to happen about YouTube as well. 10 years from now, you and I, we are going to see a great see a huge change, and we are going to be happy that we played some small part in it. So
Absolutely.
this is how.
Absolutely. We have a lot to be hopeful for. We have a lot to be thankful for. I have a lot to be thankful for. I'm glad that, you know, whatever I'm doing is having an impact and people are appreciating it. And I'm able to do this. And I have people that are actually funding me as well to pay for some of the fees for all of these things that are going on, that are needed to run the channel and the software and equipment. And I know it's expensive. I know you had a fundraiser as well for a new laptop.
Because my laptop gave away.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Now I have bought a desktop, because desktops are much more reliable because for video
cheaper.
editing.
They're cheaper, yeah.
Cheaper as well and reliable as well.
Yeah. So do check out his website, his Patreon as well, if you want to support a Pakistani free thinker that is doing, making a change at the ground level in a way that I could never effect in Pakistan, or in the towards Desis, people that speak the language. So I definitely appreciate you.
Like you encourage us, like you, Haris, even Apostate Prophet. These people, when I see all of you people, that is how I became encouraged too, because I was writing, but I was not willing to come here. Even now I cannot show my face, but still I'm trying to make some difference. And the kind of response that I've got from people, like, it's brilliant. Like, I am so much encouraged, and I feel so positive about all of this that I cannot thank these people who don't know me personally, but they've helped me as well. Their kind remarks encourage me all the time. And it is a very, very beautiful experience.
Absolutely. Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you again. I think the next show is going to be on Friday with Abdullah Gondal, and especially we'd love to invite Muslims to call in and give their 2 cents. We get a lot of 2 cents on Twitter and in the chat, but we don't usually get people calling. We're not going to embarrass anybody. We're going to be respectful and kind and all that. We're not combative here, so please do call in and join us on Friday. And thank you, Ghalib. And again, check out his channel, and see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching. This is your friendly ex-Muslim Abdullah Samir. If you'd like to support the channel, please click on Join Now, or click on the link to join on Patreon.